time do you have, Bob? What's on your phone? Go. Oh, okay.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. You didn't tell me that.
Luke said he never said no or said no.
Okay.
I said, well, where would the kid get it? He wouldn't just make it up. He doesn't know me, I don't know him. He wouldn't just make it up. So I don't believe scientists.
Okay.
He did say that the answer is one of the yes, so he pointed that out. But he said the kid was very nice, very good.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Can I have your mic? What do you got, Tom?
5 minutes.
Nothing. You haven't, the sign you're gonna do? You see that? Okay, thank you. Oh, Lord. How you feeling? Good? You need what? Really? We got everybody here. Why can't we start? Clerk Paul, can we call the council meeting to order, please?
Lennon.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Reardon. Here. Fate. Here. Santoy. Here. Ruiz.
Here.
Avila.
Present.
Nowak.
Here.
8 present, Mayor.
Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing? If we could all keep in our thoughts and prayers the family of John Novacek, who recently passed away. He was our Berwyn Police Auxiliary Superintendent and a retired Berwyn Fire Department engineer, as well as all the men and women we have on the street tonight. Thank you. Before we open the open forum to the public, I have something I want to read to open forum. I'm going to remove my mask to do that, please. This is in response to some of the questions that was at the last open forum that some of the residents had. So between the Berwyn Police Department, Officer Fitzgerald, Chief Smaglia, the administration, and myself, we put together a response that we hope is comprehensive of all the questions that were asked. So this is to all Berwyn residents and City Council members. Ruth is handing those out to you now. This will also be posted on our website tonight. The Berwyn Police Department and Mayor's Office would like to address recent events in our city surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. As a department, we recognize the frustration in our community and strive to be a supportive partner devoted to substantive change and moving the conversation forward. In response to questions regarding our actions on two separate occasions, June 1st, 2020 and August 11th, 2020, we are providing the following response in order to offer clarity. We are hopeful that this response will allow us to continue the critical discussion between the Berwyn Police Department and our community for the purposes of implementing reform. June 1st, 2020. On June 1st, 2020, in response to an unprecedented period of civil unrest, the Berwyn Police Department employed a presence on the city's borders and at strategic locations in our community. We prohibited opportunistic individuals from destabilizing our city for criminal purposes. As law enforcement professionals, we utilized intelligence, best practices, and past experience to ensure public safety. While surrounding municipalities experienced looting, rioting, physical assaults, and unfortunately, the loss of life, Berwyn residents and businesses remained safe. Rumors have been perpetuated on social media that during this time our department strategized with citizens to intimidate marginalized members of our community, suggesting that our department advocated for vigilantism. This is unequivocally false and deceptive. Vigilantism is defined as law enforcement undertaken without legal authority by a self-appointed group of people. When individuals experience or perceive the threat of deviant behavior, they may be more prone to actively intervene in order to protect their property, business, or community. No private citizen took matters into their own hands, and there was no direct intervention between Berwyn citizens and outside agitators because our officers did not allow the situation to even present itself. We chose not to devote our energy and limited resources to arrest Berwyn residents for emergency curfew violations. Instead, we chose to protect our borders from active agitators trying to make it into our city from neighboring municipalities. The police personnel used their discretion to keep Berwyn residents safe. This utilization of our professional discretion resulted in no violent public interactions, no physical police interactions, no arrest for minor offenses, no deployment of less lethal equipment, and no unlawful citizen intervention. Continuing to spread misinformation about this unprecedented and unpredictable day is negligent and disheartening. We need to put an end to the false narrative and focus on what we, as a department and a community, accomplish together. What should also be noted is that after the small window on June 1st, there has been no indication of vigilante groups attempting to assume the duties of the department. This is a testament to the community's faith in its public safety professionals, and we will continue to serve in a professional manner and protect all citizens and businesses of Berwyn. August 11th, 2020. Another concern brought to our attention by some members of our community revolved around the operational decisions at a recent rally, specifically the positioning, proportion, and tactics used during this event on August 11th. We would like to make it clear that our top priority at this event, like all community events, was the safety of the participants and citizens. Based on social media activity, over 600 people indicated they would potentially attend this rally. With a group of that size, we were provided intelligence that the likelihood of opportunistic agitators infiltrating the event would increase, particularly in the wake of civil unrest in Chicago less than 24 hours earlier. City officials recommended that the event be postponed. Organizers agreed, then decided to continue with the event without communicating their plans with city liaisons. The City of Berwyn respects the right to assemble and free speech. Although the organizers chose to keep essential parties out of the communication loop, the Berwyn Police Department decided to move forward with our plan to provide security during the event at City Hall and in key business districts. Because we anticipated an event with 600 or more attendees, we were prepared to maintain order and safety with an appropriate amount of officers if the need arose. We are aware that positioning all our personnel in one area could potentially introduce unnecessary challenges to the area and ultimately draw attention away from the spirit of the rally that our community participants envisioned. Unfortunately for some, our decision to position officers on roofs took away from the spirit of the event. That was not our intention, and we apologize for the concern and uncomfortableness this may have caused. Our department opted to utilize tactics that successfully worked for us in the past, specifically those that provided good sight lines for several blocks and afforded us the ability to capture any imagery of criminal acts. In hindsight, we understand that this was a suboptimal decision and will consider alternative options if we are faced with similar circumstances in the future. We understand that new forms of response need to be considered, but at the same time, we cannot and will not compromise the safety of Berwyn residents. We understand the movement that is happening is critical, and our department is committed to standing with the citizens of Berwyn. Our number one mission is to keep our communities safe, and we are aligned with this humanitarian movement in understanding that fighting for equality and justice makes this community safer for all people, particularly those who have been made to feel in the past as though we are not working on their behalf. We can and we will do better. However, these conversations require nuance and grace if we are to have a constructive dialogue, not a continual rehashing of optics. We firmly believe that the police and the community can have authentic and productive conversations, particularly with those from diverse and marginalized backgrounds, leading to meaningful outcomes and real reform. Thank you for allowing us to clarify our perspective, and we look forward to continuing to protect our community, and that is signed by myself as mayor and Michael Smagler, chief of police. So that will be posted to our website. Claudia is going to be posting it, I think, sometime during the evening. With that, I'll open up the floor to the rest of the open forum. Chief?
Your Honor, I'd like to add a little something. Ladies and gentlemen of City Council, many thanks to the mayor for reading our joint statement in regards to the actions that the City of Berwyn and my department are making in order to ensure the safety of all our citizens. I want to emphasize that these are not just words to appease, but more importantly, first in a series of action steps to move the needle and enact substantive change within the ranks at my department. Later on in the agenda tonight, you will be asked to vote for the purchase of body-worn cameras and in-car camera systems. I am asking you to vote yes. This is an important initiative that I and my administration have been working on since the beginning of the year, and recognize that this is important for continuing to rebuild trust with our community. We are ready to move forward. Please take this opportunity to help us meet the expectations that our citizens and your constituents demand of their public servants. Thank you for your consideration with this matter. We look forward to your yes vote and to partnering with you and our community as we move forward together.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else from the public wish to address the open forum? Please step forward, state your name and address, please. And I'll
Hi.
ask everybody if you would leave a copy of your comments with the clerk so we can look at them.
Absolutely. My name is Chanda Sablowski, and I've lived for 16 years on Scoville, where my husband and I have raised our 2 girls. I love Berwyn and our community that continues to fight to make Berwyn the best it can be. I appreciate the statements that were made tonight. I take that to heart. I still think that many of the concerns I have are valid. I was pleased to hear that these are statements leading to actions and not just words, so I'd like to start off by giving my appreciation for that. Berwyn has grown into a place that stands for being a welcoming city, and I'm so very proud of that. Berwyn has been a strong ally for our LGBTQIA neighbors and our immigrant neighbors. Berwyn has supported a living wage to support our hardworking residents even when other cities opted out. I'm so proud of that too. Berwyn now has an opportunity to stand up for our Black neighbors, and it's stumbling. Black lives matter in Berwyn. We need to acknowledge this and provide action to support this before we can say that we are truly a welcoming city where all lives matter. As a friend has pointed out, words without actions mean nothing. This is not a political statement. This is simply a fact. Just say the words, Black Lives Matter. If it helps, silently say the word "to" at the end. It's really that simple. Berwyn has a shameful past as a sundown town where Black people were advised to leave before the sun went down. We need to acknowledge this history so that we can move beyond this with purpose. When the discussion of a simple supportive statement as a mural came up, Black Lives Matter, it became a huge point of contention. As a welcoming city, we need to truly ask ourselves what that's about. A mural is just a mural and will mean nothing without true change to our institutions that were created for white people, by white people. As a white person, I've recently realized that I've always viewed the world from a white-centered perspective, considering those who are different from me as the diversity I've enjoyed. We need to fight to be inclusive, to truly reflect our community so that we can all be heard and valued and so that we can all grow and succeed. I believe there's much misunderstanding and misinformation regarding this renewed push for equal justice and equity. The heart of these protests are being distorted into an anti-police, violent, looting narrative, and we cannot let ourselves be duped into this racial fear-mongering. There are 3 specific issues I would like to bring up. The Diversity Commission has not met for some time. There have been leadership shakeups and resignations. When hard questions were asked and accountability was demanded, there was an unfortunate pushback instead of working together. The leadership of this committee cannot be in the hands of the city or accountability will not be assured. The questions asked and the recommendations made have not been addressed with action by our police department or our city. Our mayor has the power to demand this. Our city council has the power to demand this. I believe our police department and our city want justice for all our residents, so why would they purposefully discount the voices saying there's a problem? We need to believe our neighbors of color when they tell us their experiences, even when it happened to us. The police and city response to the Black Lives Matter rally in August was very disproportionate. Every member of the public office should have taken the opportunity to stop by and support our residents. The police should have supported this. If they truly believe there's no bias against our Black residents, why would the police and city not want to show support? The speakers were inspiring, positive, and were people Berwyn should be proud of. You missed an opportunity to hear these voices. I joined with the voices from the last council meeting to ask why the photos, why the long guns, why the outright hostility from the officers present. If there was a true threat, as the mayor alleges the FBI and CPD informed them of, why is there no record of communications from the FBI as requested by FOIA? There were many children present, including mine. Did the city disregard the safety of its citizens? The only issue that we had was from a man who acted threateningly and who was aggressive and in the face of many people there. The police, who say they were there for our safety, never addressed his behavior, never talked to him to assess whether there was a risk of escalation. I would also like to join the other voices to ask for accountability and policy change after the events of June 1st. Our police are shown in multiple videos from that night supporting vigilantes, some armed with bats and pipes, on the public streets after curfew. Does curfew only apply to certain people? After Kenosha, I think we can all see how terribly wrong supporting vigilantes can go. The police are hired to keep the streets safe and are trained in how to handle these situations, not some guy with a baseball bat on Cermak. Our Black neighbors were traumatized. There was even a Facebook group created to escort our Black residents in and out of town to ensure their safety. This is unacceptable. I ask that the police department apologize, which they have, and indicate how they will make sure this never will happen again, which they have not. In closing, I invite the public officials that lead us here in Berwyn to address these issues. I know you all, and I've worked with most of you on important initiatives here, and I know what you're capable of. Strong leadership acknowledges mistakes and embraces growth and improvement. In these polarizing times, we need to join together. We all want Berwyn to continue to grow and show leadership at its promise of being a welcoming city. Let's truly live this statement. Let's fight for justice and equity together. Let's continue moving forward in this by reminding everyone that Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanda.
Hello, Mayor Lavero and alderpersons. My name is Andrea Monday, and I live at 1524 Highland with my husband, Kevin, and our 2 children. Kevin and I moved to Berwyn to start our life together in 2014. I moved from downtown Aurora, where I lived for 6 years, and Kevin from Oak Park. We lived on the 2nd story of a 2-flat apartment on Harvey, where we made lifelong connections with the family on the 1st floor and fell in love with the neighborhood. When we were ready to buy a home together, we decided to stay in Berwyn, and we were happy to find a house we loved in the neighborhood. Throughout 2016 and 2017, we were overjoyed to witness Berwyn putting progressive policies in place that aligned with our values and the values we hope to pass to our children. We celebrated when the Welcoming City Ordinance passed, as we believe no human is illegal. We were full of pride in our city when we learned that D100 had protected the rights of transgender students long before it was federally required. When we were encouraged to hear you speak, Mayor, at an event about human dignity and the importance of all people feeling valued. We didn't expect to move into a perfect city. We wouldn't fit in a perfect city. Generally, when people have complained about small annoyances in Berwyn, our response have been to ask people how they are getting involved to make things better. What we did expect was a truly welcoming city to all people. In the past year, this is not what we have experienced. It seems Berwyn's welcoming nature ends with people who have different opinions than the leadership, and it seems Berwyn's welcoming nature ends with Black people. On the night of June 1st, one of many nights of civil unrest following the murder of George Floyd, we did see a large gathering of armed vigilantes in our streets past the city's own emergency curfew, mingling, laughing, and taking photos with police officers. We have recently seen the worst outcomes of this type of vigilantism with the death of 2 innocent people in Kenosha, Wisconsin, 10 minutes from my childhood home where my parents still live. 3 months later, we have no communication from the mayor's office, although thank you for your communication today, or from the Berwyn Police Department on why this was allowed to happen. Recently, my fellow commissioner, Reverend Doris Green, and I stepped down from the Berwyn Diversity Commission, which was tasked with looking into an accusation of racial profiling against the Berwyn Police Department. We resigned because we felt the city was actively blocking honest inquiries into police activity, and the police department showed no urgency or effort towards sensible reforms. The Diversity Commission asked about the events of June 1st, and the response given to us was that this was beyond the scope of what we were created to do, even though policing issues were a part of our initial charge. What happened on June 1st is not beyond the scope of racial profiling. Let me simply ask how the police were planning to identify good guys with bats from rioters simply from judging based on the color of their skin. Black residents started turning to Facebook to ask if it was safe for them to return home or for their children to return home that night, some from jobs as essential workers. The silence from the mayor's office and the BPD on this issue is unacceptable. I've had multiple DCOB party members tell me it was only 1 or 2 Black residents that were scared. I don't believe that's the case. I know that's not the case. And even if you believe that it was only 1 or 2 Black residents, do not deserve an official explanation? Do they not matter? Furthermore, since we have now seen the BPD actively allow certain people to break laws, how are we to trust that they are truly serving and protecting all? How are we to trust that they will uphold this welcoming city ordinance? How are we to trust that when 8 police officers are lined up on the top of City Hall with cameras and long rifles at a family-friendly Berwyn Black Lives Matter rally, that they were there to protect rally-goers and not intimidate them? When I arrived at the Black Lives Matter rally on August 11th, I felt that we were the enemy. I've heard rumors and explanations from aldermen and city employees about an outside threat to the event. However, to my eyes, the police weren't spread all over the roof as if they were looking for threats from all directions. they were all focused in one area. They were focused on the people, the families of Berwyn, who had peacefully gathered to show support of a Black Lives Matter mural in Berwyn. Why did it take so long for residents to receive this explanation of show of force? We've heard a warning came from NEPAs. We heard a warning came from the Chicago Police Department. We heard the warning came from the FBI. What is the truth? Along with the questions presented by my fellow residents tonight and who spoke at City Council at the last meeting, and along with my question about how we can trust the Berwyn Police Department, the question I will add tonight is, do you care? I hope you do. I hope Berwyn residents soon receive the honest communication we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Good evening, Mayor Lavero, good evening, council members, and good evening, members of the public. My name is Anna Marin. I live at 1228 Elmwood. However, tonight I'm representing Berwyn Community Action. So, Berwyn Comunidad en Acción, Berwyn Community Action, expresses deep concern at the lack of response from the City of Berwyn and the Berwyn Police Department regarding racial profiling. This is the exact way BCA began a letter addressed to City Council on June 11th, 2019. Since then, much, or perhaps not enough, has happened. Back then, Mayor Lavero, Police Chief Samiglia, and certain members of council pretended to listen to resident concerns regarding racial profiling against BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, residents, and the lack of police accountability in Berwyn, facing both personal testimonials and police data required by law to be accurate and reported to the state of Illinois. The mayor and some city council members dismissed this evidence. A diversity commission was created to pretend to deal with these concerns, and any recommendations it made to address racial inequities in Berwyn were silenced. In the face of renewed attention on local police misconduct, the diversity commission has not met, and now 2 members, including the chair, have resigned. Mayor Lavero, you have failed to do your due diligence in representing all the peoples of Berwyn. You have claimed that racial profiling does not exist as a systemic problem in Berwyn, and refuse to hold police or anyone else in your administration accountable. Now, we have seen the documented evidence that Berwyn police officers protected and encouraged armed vigilantes breaking curfew to intimidate and terrorize Black residents of Berwyn and the surrounding areas. Again, personal testimonies of residents feeling terrified to leave their homes to go to work or to buy groceries have been completely ignored. Then the chief of police publicly disparaged Kim Fox, a Black state's attorney, because she believes that systemic injustices exist against Black and other people of color, and that public officials and offices should use their granted power to fight for equity. Chief Samaglia, his post ignited a hate-filled, dangerous, and vitriolic assault against the Black community and was never addressed by the mayor or council. And most recently, a peaceful, community, and family-oriented rally in support of Black lives occurred at City Hall, while Berwyn police officers, heavily armed with long guns and cameras, took aim at Black residents, Latinx babies, white seniors, all who believe that Black people have the right to live with as much liberty as you. Community questions still remain unanswered despite any response from Mayor Lavero or Chief Samaglia. We as community members are not frustrated. We are angry. We are gaslighted. We are terrified. We are silenced. We are powerful. We are community. And we still have questions, and there have been many questions posed tonight. But one I will ask is, why are you doing nothing to address the systemic issue of racial profiling against Black and POC residents at the hands of police? Black lives matter. Las vidas negras importan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Good evening. My name is Benjamin Henning. My wife Charlotte and I moved to Berwyn in July 2019 and reside at 1926 Wisconsin Avenue. When we moved to Berwyn, we did not have any visibility into the North Berwyn versus South Berwyn mentality, no knowledge of the Berwyn Facebook groups, and no understanding of Berwyn being a former sundown town. We thought it was a wonderful suburb of Chicago and knew that we would have amazing landlords and welcoming neighbors. Having lived in Berwyn for 14 months, I've only been aware of the Berwyn historical racial climate for just over 3 of those, under 100 days. During these 100 days, my experience regarding the Berwyn Police Department through the lens of a black man has included the Berwyn Police Department posing for pictures and encouraging the vigilantes to be in the streets, disregarding the curfew that had been put in place for all of our safety. The only difference is that no one was killed in Berwyn, which could not be said about our neighbors in Cicero that evening, where right next door 2 people were killed, and even more recently on the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. It was well known to those of us following along in real time that as a black person, we were being targeted and it was not safe for us in Berwyn. After the unrest that we experienced on June 1st, I wrote a letter to the Diversity Commission that was read into the record on June 16th. We are now approaching 3 months later, and there still has not been a response from the City of Berwyn or the Berwyn Police Department into the actions of the Berwyn Police Department that evening. And I appreciate you responding this evening. On June 8th, I started a petition for the 8 Can't Wait campaign that received over 500 signatures calling for the Berwyn Police Department to have and follow written policies for all 8 common sense measures to reduce harm during interactions. The Berwyn Police Department immediately released a statement stating the Berwyn Police Department aligns its policies and procedures with the tenets associated with 8 Can't Wait. We are proud to say that our policies associated with this initiative have been in place since 2018. This was untrue, and while posting this public statement, they still have not provided the public the actual 8 policies that are in place for our safety. What is the delay in providing the documentation, and when will it be available to the public? The initial response to the Berwyn Public Arts Initiative Black Lives Matter mural was that these 3 words were political and would not be supported by the city on a public roadway. On August 4th, a thin blue line flag was found hanging in City Hall. This flag is well known to be associated with the KKK and rose to prominence, being a complete rebuke to the Black Lives Matter movement. This flag is based entirely on being political, and to be honest, very hateful to the black community. Due to public pressure, the flag was removed, but no public announcement as to why it was removed was made. On August 10th, a frame display was seen in photographs at the Berwyn Police Department that also had 2 examples of the thin blue line flag. This flag should not be hanging on or on display in any Berwyn government building. As a symbol, it is as offensive during this national reckoning on race and police brutality as it would be to have the Confederate flag hanging in its place in City Hall. It must be noted that less than 1 month prior to these flags being seen in our government buildings, our neighbors in Riverside made a public stand against this inflammatory and racist flag. Elected officials in Riverside on July 16th turned aside a request by village trustee Alex Gallegos to fly a version of the Blue Lives Matter flag outside of the township hall during the month of September to honor first responders, saying it was a divisive symbol that had been co-opted by hate groups. There is nothing about the flag that is not divisive. So for that reason, the flag is inappropriate, said Village President Ben Sells. I also helped organize the Black Lives Matter rally in Berwyn on August 11th. Instead of supporting the entirely peaceful rally at City Hall in solidarity of its black residents, the official city Facebook page only post regarding the event stated that City Hall would be closing at 5 p.m. for a large gathering and warned people to stay away for their own safety. The militarized show of force on the roof with the long guns, the telephoto lenses, the bike force hiding in the garage to be deployed, and the police standing in the alley laughing and not offering any support with counter-protesters sent an incredibly strong message that black lives in Berwyn are not supported by this police department, this mayor, and other elected officials that chose to stay away versus standing with us in unity. This was a missed opportunity. I joined my neighbors in expecting answers to the following questions. And you made a statement this evening, a joint statement, but we're still missing answers here. And there's many of us that would like to know, who notified the Berwyn Police Department or the city of the alleged threat? Number 2, if there is a specific and credible threat that justified the extreme police presence, why was there no official communication with rally attendees or residents regarding this threat? And finally, what was or will be done with the photographs of rally attendees that were taken by multiple officers on the City Hall roof? I would like to finish with this. I'm excited for continued dialogue with the City of Berwyn and the Berwyn Police Department, but that must be a two-way conversation, which it currently is not. I know that not all of my actions or tactics have been effective in my short time being involved, and I'm still learning. But what I do know is that Berwyn is an amazing community, one that we chose to be part of, and hundreds of my neighbors are standing up in unison to create the change we want to see in Berwyn, creating good and necessary trouble by asking the hard questions and holding our elected officials and our police department accountable to us. Let's move forward together to be the best Berwyn we can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a copy already.
Good evening. My name is Allison Paul. I live on Kenilworth and 27th Avenue here in Berwyn. I'm here to tell you about my 3-year-old. If you've ever been around a 3-year-old, you know they ask a lot of questions. And He's also obsessed with becoming a police officer. And it's understandable. If you've read a child's book, you kind of know they're looked up to in the community. They have authority. They're supposed to keep our communities safe, and people look up to you. And if you've met a 3-year-old, you know that they don't always feel like people are looking to them for answers, which I think is what he's looking for. I'm having a really hard time explaining to my 3-year-old right now why we can't look up to the Berwyn Police Department. And I really appreciate that there was a response tonight. I wish it had been sooner, but I do appreciate it. And you had words in there about, apologizing and trying to clarify. And I think that that is the spirit of why a lot of us are here, to work towards something better. When we went to the August 11th rally, my first question my son had was, why are there people on the roof? How did they get up there, and why are they there? And these were the same questions that we continue to ask. I heard in your response tonight that you said that some of these things were about, that wasn't the correct response, that it was a suboptimal response, I think was the words that you used in that, and I appreciate that you're going towards more clarity there. I think another way of getting more clarity was, I heard a call for body cams, which is also a step in the right direction. But I'm afraid that we need more than words on paper. We need meaningful answers, and we need actions. And I think I still feel a little bit like an inquisitive 3-year-old asking why is the Berwyn Police Department unaccountable for some of their actions? Why is there no transparency? Why is the Diversity Committee not allowed to look into the things that are very much of importance, like the June cases that we've heard so much about today? And why are there so many reports of racial profiling here in our city? Watching the recent events in Kenosha, Wisconsin feels a little too close to home right now. It's really hard to not see how Berwyn could be susceptible to that same violence. And I spent
Take your time, relax.
I spent 3 years working in a war zone in Colombia. And it was a place where my daily job, there were different checkpoints with armed people. There was outright intimidation by the armed forces and by paramilitary forces and others. I hadn't experienced checkpoints like that again until I came to Berwyn 5 years ago. And I was shocked. We are looked up to as a country, as a community, to be better than that. And I'm really afraid that it doesn't feel that way right now. We need stronger actions. You talked about the early June actions, and you talked about how that nothing unlawful happened, that people weren't arrested, and that you chose to focus in other places. Those actions speak louder than any words that we will hear in this room here tonight for our community members. And I really think it's a prime opportunity for us to look at the actions where we have evidence of the police department being side by side with vigilantes who are allowed to be out after curfew. It's very clear where the Berwyn police stood on that night. You have the chance to be accountable, to be transparent, and be part of the solution so that we all feel safe, and especially our African American and other people of color neighbors who are sadly being very targeted, whether it's here and in other communities. So I really hope I can count on the leadership of this committee, of the police department, of the mayor, so that when my 3-year-old keeps asking me these why questions, including stuff like, does everybody here feel safe with our Berwyn Police Department? I really hope that we can have a better answer for him next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lou Weeks. I live in the 7th Ward in the corner of Winona and 18th. My wife Joyce Colton and I have lived in Berwyn since 2014 when we bought our house. I'm very close neighbors to the mayor and to Raul Avi. We were excited to live in a diverse neighborhood, and we still are. We've got good relationships with our neighbors, and we've built close friendships with many folks around this town. We regularly encourage people who are looking to move out of Chicago to move here, and some of our friends have. I attended the Black Lives Matter event on August 11th outside City Hall, and I thought the event itself was very moving. A young man who was just starting high school spoke. A business owner spoke. A pastor spoke. But to be honest, I was disappointed with the conduct of the Berwyn police, which I assume was directed by top-level officials at City Hall. I could tell while we were rallying and listening to speakers that someone on the roof of City Hall was taking all of our pictures, and I thought that that was odd. But then I later learned there were long rifles that had been pointed in our direction. When we peacefully marched around the block, all of a sudden there were so many police officers on bikes. You don't need to protect Berwyn from us. We are Berwyn. We spend our money here, we go see music here, we pay our taxes, we fix up our houses. My wife and I are white, but we stand in solidarity with the movement for Black lives. And we have been learning more about our town and its shameful history as a sundown town. Since then, it seems we've made some progress. Let's not stop making progress. I remember that in April of 2017, the Board of Aldermen voted to make Berwyn a welcoming city, and I was really proud about that. That unanimous vote gave our immigrant members of our community some assurance that they're not going through their hardship alone. Why are we so messed up about the movement for Black lives? What the hell could be the reason? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tiffany Ducina. I know many of you.
I'm sorry, could you speak up,
Oh.
please?
Is that better? Is that
Yes,
better?
thank you.
My name is Tiffany Ducina. I've spoken a couple times at school board meetings. First time at City Hall. A little bit nervous, but I wanted to say that I love Berwyn. Deep, deep inside of me, I love Berwyn. I am so happy we didn't move to Oak Park. That would have not made me feel like a comfortable, diverse neighborhood from a mixed family and from a heritage of my stepfather being Mexican and moving to an all-white town and learning that that was at odds with what the town's view was. So moving to Berwyn felt like I came home. My brother went to Morton West, where he finally was in a school surrounded by people of color, diversity, Mexicans. Taco Day was a thing. He found his people. He found out that he could check a box that said Hispanic and not feel ashamed about it. So I've always loved living here. I've loved going to the Pride Parade because I found that we supported our gay, lesbian, transgender community. I loved going to Dias de los Muertos because it celebrated the other part of our community. So when I look at Berwyn, I see diversity rooted at our core. And to be turned away from a BLM mural to continue to show the diversity that is enseeped in our community and the support for our residents was disappointing. To hear that I felt safe in my home when there was rioting at the North Riverside Mall, and to feel proud that our police officers had put up barriers, that Tony's was protected, but then also to get a call from a neighbor saying that she had prepared a hole in her fence so that her neighbor, who were an African-American couple with kids, could sneak into her house so that they could feel safe from vigilantes on the street with bats, was shocking. It was so sad to go from up here to hear a story that just shattered my reality of Berwyn. And I don't want to ever hear that story again. I don't ever want to have a neighbor tell me that that's what they're preparing to do in our town, because I am proud of our town. I am proud of our aldermen. I am proud of our community that comes together to point out problems, our community that tries to solve problems, my friends that ran for school board to make our schools competitive with every neighboring town and to prove that we are at the same par as Riverside and Oak Park and River Forest, that we are there. We are here, and we are proud, and we are strong. And I would like to continue to see the show of support for our Black Lives Matter and our activists that are coming forward now with problems. Our diversity committee is an integral part to that, and I would like to see meetings happen again with regards to questions that we continue to have, that will continue to come up, that will continue to need answers to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience for open forum?
One second here. Wait on this. Great. I'm just going to ask everybody a collective breath because we are going to change the subject. So everybody just take a deep breath. All right. So my name is Sandra Montez, and I'm a Berwyn resident, business owner, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. And this is Amanda Stevens, who is also a licensed clinical social worker and a therapist at In Motion Counseling, which is my counseling business. We are here today to talk to you about suicide prevention. We are here to talk about September as Suicide Prevention Month. There are some very startling facts. We know that suicide is the second leading cause of death among those between the ages of 10 and 34. It is the fourth leading cause of death among individuals between ages of 35 and 54. There were twice as many suicides in the United States as there have been homicides. And suicide does not discriminate. It happens in every community, every background. Just recently in the first ward where I live, one of our residents died by suicide. The pain and trauma that is felt by those who survive is unmeasurable. And this is why we're here, to talk about how we can help prevent suicide.
I'm going to talk about some suicide warnings that you might be able to see in people within your community, who you're working with, or even your family members, or even yourself. Many people who are suicidal talk about ending their lives. It's a really big myth that if you bring up suicide and you talk about it, that it's going to make somebody think about it. However, they're already thinking about it if that's what's going to happen. So if somebody's talking about it, you want to be direct and you want to talk to them about it as well. Some other warning signs are some of their behaviors may be atypical for an individual. So you should also encourage to speak to that person about what you notice. So if somebody is having insomnia or somebody's sleeping too much, if they're withdrawing from activities that they normally would go to, reckless spending or searching methods online or shopping for firearms. These are all very big signs that suicide is on somebody's mind. And people at risk for suicide can also display a number of moods. And that can range from apathy, impulsivity, anxiety, rage, and irritability. And we all, have our ups and downs. We all don't have a good day. But when you notice a change that might seem uncharacteristic or concerning, it's important to speak to that person. And I know not everybody's a clinician, not everybody's a professional. They might not know what to say. So being able to talk to somebody in crisis, the best way to broach the subject of your or others' mental health is to treat it like something important, because it is. You want to listen attentively. You want to ask open-ended questions so that people can't just answer yes or no. You want to hear some type of explanation. Don't assume or make judgments. Be open. If somebody's going to tell you something, it's probably really hard for them to tell you. And if you don't know what to say, you can answer with, "Thank you for telling me. That must have been really hard for you." And just knowing that can be really supportive. And then if somebody does open up to you, please find a way to get them help, and if it's safe to stay with them until help arrives if you can't get them to somebody.
Okay, so where can we go for help? Obviously, if it's a life-threatening emergency, we call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room, which for us would be McNeil. For general help, there is the crisis text hotline. So if you want to write this down, you can text home to 741-741. It's a great resource, and that's a national number. And then we have the National Suicide Hotline. That is 1-800-273-TALK. Also, you can encourage your friends, residents to seek help at their primary care doctors or pediatrician. Now, for Illinois more specific resources, if you have a minor in your ward that is in crisis, Illinois does have a free hotline where they can receive a screening to see if they qualify for additional services. The number for this is 1-800-345-9049. Again, that's 1-800-345-9049. And for adults, we offer the living room. It's run by peer recovery sport specialists, and they make wellness plans. There's 2 living rooms, one in LaGrange and Broadview. One of them is run by Pillars, which is our local community mental health agency. For more information, you can call them at 708-PILLARS. There's also PCC Community Wellness Centers, which is located right on Roosevelt, Pilsen Mental Health Center, which is on 26th and Ridgeland. And if you don't know where to send someone for help, please contact me. Amanda and I are happy to figure out a resource for anyone in your life that you think is suffering for suicide. We invite you all to take action to prevent suicide by attending our training. We're having one Monday, September 21st, 7 p.m. via Zoom. There we will talk more in depth about how to talk with someone who's in crisis and hopefully give you more tools so we can prevent death. For more information about that, please follow us on social media or ask Alderman Nowak, who is here to sponsor a call to action. Also in this packet is a shirt for Alderman Scott Lennon, my alderman. The shirt is an LGBTQ shirt very similar to this one. We know that that community is affected by suicide in much higher rates. And one for Alderman Nowak, and for you, Mr. Lavero, Mayor Lavero, in blue, because we know that our first responders also have very high rates of suicide. And if anybody has any other questions, we also have some
Could you
handouts.
leave a copy of that with those numbers with the clerk?
Yes.
Okay, please, thank you.
And then for those two, just like, what I was saying, how to start a conversation, even if it might not be directly related to suicide, but could be related to people's mental health. Some people don't know how to start that conversation. There's, 5 ways to start a conversation here. And then other resources that you can follow in the Seize the Awkward campaign from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So I'll leave these 2 for anybody who
Thank
wants
you
to
very
grab
much.
one.
Thank you. Anybody else for open forum? Alderman, anything for open forum?
Mayor, I would like to add, and thank you for coming and speaking, Sandra. Last Wednesday, I received a call that my neighbor next door had lost his life from suicide. So, being with the parents, his name was Abel Ruiz. It was a difficult time. So this hits home, and thank you so much.
Okay. Any other alderman?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to thank you first for the communication here that you and Chief Samaglia put together. I still have a couple of issues I'd like to bring up. One is, as I put in my communication it was a missed opportunity for our Berwyn Police Department to get involved in the Black Lives Matter movement and understand it. So I'd like to still get a communication from Chief Samaglia concerning how the Berwyn Police Department will rectify this. I'd like to see them do, I understand they apologized in here for what they did with the guns on the roof and the cameras and all that, but I'd also like to see our Berwyn Police Department take a proactive stand, an opportunity to mingle with our black residents, African American residents. And so, put something out and maybe create an event that involves our African American families, residents, and the Berwyn Police Department. Two, I'd like to see the city, I know you've met with the Berwyn Public Art Initiative and discussed the mural. I'd like to see the city reach out to the Berwyn Arts Public Art Initiative and see how we can help them. And then once that mural gets created, I'd like to see all city council at that unveiling and publicly support this.
Claudia from my office has been working with Berwyn Arts. They did their listening sessions, and we're waiting for them to make a determination as to what, where, how, when. At that time, everybody will be invited.
Awesome.
Number two, with respect to, I've already opened up communications with one or two of the speakers that were out at that rally, and we're working, and I've advised the police department, and we're working with some of the black residents with respect to getting some type of conversation going.
Great.
So I've done that with one of the members that spoke at that rally.
Awesome.
So we're on top of what you're talking about.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And then last, I do want an answer to what happened to those pictures that were taken from the rooftop. What will happen to them, and where are they at right now?
Okay, I'll find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question related to that. We referred the conversation to the committee of the whole, which I expected to happen today, but I understand because of the holiday, we didn't have a committee of the whole. But that was referred so that city council could ask questions regarding that event. And so I would still like that to happen.
Okay. Well, it's still in the committee of the whole. Any other aldermen? Clerk, you had something?
Yes, Mayor, I received some communications for open forum tonight. I received communication from Will Hudson and Tonya Horn on the evening of June 1st. I sat at home and watched live streams of our armed vigilantes congregating on Cermak Road alongside Berwyn police officers. There was a curfew in effect. Everyone had been instructed to stay home, but these men were out on the street en masse, armed with bats and sticks and who knows what other weapons I could not see. They were doing this with the consent of law enforcement. Why was this allowed to occur? Why were these individuals armed and ready for a fight, not sent home? Why would city impose a curfew to keep residents safe, only to allow other residents to take up arms and take to the streets? Who exactly was threatening violence in this case? Better, who was being protected, and who was made to feel afraid and unsafe? A few weeks later, my family and I attended the Black Lives Matter rally at City Hall. This was an opportunity for the community to stand together peacefully and say unequivocally that Black Lives Matter, while demonstrating solidarity with our black and African American friends and neighbors. Friends and neighbors, by the way, many of whom continue to feel betrayed by our city's response to the vigilantism on display in June. As I stood with my wife and 16-year-old daughter, I looked up to see police officers on the roof of City Hall with cameras and telephoto lenses. I later learned of another officer who was there with a long gun. Across the street were more officers on another rooftop with a video camera mounted on a tripod. Who were you protecting when you placed cameras and guns on the rooftop of this building? Do you now possess digital images of me, my wife, my 16-year-old daughter? Have they been shared among other city officials and officers? What about the 14-year-old boy, one of Berwyn's brightest, who spoke bravely while being harassed by an individual who later stood with the officers lined up by the fence alongside us? Do you have that young man's images on file somewhere? Here are the easy questions, questions that have been asked before. Why were armed vigilantes allowed to congregate on Cermak Road during the citywide curfew on June 1st? Why were cameras and guns placed on rooftops during the Black Lives Matter rally? What has been done with these images that you collected that day? Here are the hard questions. What threat exactly were you protecting us from? Whose interests were being served? And finally, throughout all of this, Who are you really trying to keep safe? Respectfully, Will Hudson and Tonya Horn. Another from Jenna Musselman-Pales in the 3rd Ward. I want to add my name to Berwyn residents who are calling for additional police accountability and transparency related to, number 1, police surveillance of residents attending the BLM rally celebration on August 11th. 2, BPD and the mayor's lack of response to the June 1st video of BPD standing with vigilantes with weapons. And 3, continual silence on the issue of racial profiling within BPD. As a long-term white resident of Berwyn, I am disturbed and upset by the silence and complacency of BPD, the mayor, and some city council members on issues related to race and those most impacted by racism. By not acknowledging race, we also do not acknowledge implicit bias, racism impact when people are not able to be fully seen, along with systemic racism and how it is present. As a welcoming city, I am hopeful that Berwyn will be a city that addresses equity intentionally, and that racism exhibited in policy, practice, and on social media will be held accountable, changed, and repair will be made. Thank you. One last one. No, I'm sorry, I have 2 others. This one was from Robert Moorhead. As a resident of Berwyn, I would like to join voices of my fellow city residents in asking for public explanations from the Berwyn Police Department regarding 2 recent incidents: the treatment of seeming vigilantes patrolling streets after curfew on June 1st, in which police were recorded having their pictures taken with those vigilantes. 2, the police presence at the Black Lives Matter rally, which included using telephoto lenses to take photographs of rally participants from atop City Hall. Why were officers not enforcing the curfew? How was it that officers seemed to allow the vigilantes, some of whom were armed, to patrol the streets? Why was there such a large police presence at the Black Lives Matter rally? Had the police received warnings about possible disturbances? If so, what were those warnings, and what steps did the police take to communicate them to the event organizers? What steps did the police take to balance protecting the public with avoiding intimidating residents as they exercise their right to free speech? City residents, myself included, have previously requested explanations of these events. However, to date, no explanations have been forthcoming, despite the repeated requests and the passage of weeks. The questions are reasonable and deserve detailed responses. As the Washington Post motto states, democracy dies in darkness. In order for our democracy to survive, it must be nourished through sunlight. In this case, it involves public servants responding to the public that they serve. One last one from, this one is from Julia McAleer Fort. A spokesperson at the last City Council meeting regarding the Black Lives Matter mural celebration held outside City Hall and the unnecessary over-policing of this peaceful event. I mentioned that several currently seated aldermen like to call Berwyn a welcoming city when residents mention issues of race and diversity, as if the title welcoming city absolves the mayor, aldermen, and all elected officials from continuing to put in work and actually welcome everyone. What we know about Berwyn is that a Blue Lives Matter flag hung proudly in the open inside City Hall. We know that the phrase Blue Lives Matter and the flag that represents it is the police response used to negate the fact that Black Lives Matter and there is no such thing as a blue life. We know that the Berwyn Police Department stood and watched speakers and peaceful demonstrators with their arms crossed. We know that a personal vehicle blocking the alley across from City Hall had 2 officers inside, had the front license plate removed. We know that officers perched on the top of City Hall had cameras and took pictures of every speaker and attendee, including children in strollers and senior citizens. We know that there was at least 1 long weapon on the rooftop. We know our black neighbors matter here in Berwyn to you. What we don't know is why. So I turn the tables and I ask, why Berwyn? Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item C1, please.
Item C1 are the Committee of the Whole and the regular City Council meeting minutes of August 25th, 2020.
I have a
I'd
correction.
like to make a motion
Hold
to,
on, we have a correction.
Thank you.
I made the motion on behalf of Alderman Ramirez, and I think you seconded it, Scott. Is that correct?
Correct.
I2, Reardon, motion seconded by Lennon. You're going to make the motion to amend the minutes to reflect the correction.
I would like to make the motion to amend the minutes to reflect the correction in I-2.
Second.
well,
Motion by Reardon, seconded by Lennon to amend the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion on the minutes in general now?
Well, no, I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect the vote for I-4. There's no vote at the end. Was it unanimous? I'm sure it was, but
I-4.
I-4.
Yes,
There's
thank
no
you.
vote, yeah.
I will check my notes in the tape, and then I can amend it for the next meeting. I'll have that correction.
I'd like to make that motion that we amended I-4.
Second.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Lennon to make a correction in the minutes to reflect the vote in item I-4 at the next general meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole and the regular council meeting that was held on August 25th, 2020 with the amended items.
Second.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Fay to approve the general council minutes and the Committee of the Whole minutes of August 25th with the amended items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Alderman, do you have something to bring forward?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we bring forward F3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to bring forward F3 by Avila, seconded by Santoy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item F3, please.
F3, a resolution regarding Clarence Clarence and 13th, renaming it as Ann Mackin Way. A resolution regarding the honorary designation of the corner of Clarence Avenue and 13th Street as Ann Mackin Way.
Make a motion that we adopt the resolution, place it on its way to passage, ask the corporate authorities to sign the signatures, and place it on its way to passage.
Second.
And,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. Good.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Noack to adopt the resolution, direct the corporate authorities to fix necessary signatures and place it on its way to passage. All those in favor, to call the roll.
Lennon?
Aye.
Ramirez?
Aye.
Reardon?
Aye.
Fate?
Aye.
Santoy? Ruiz?
Aye.
Avila?
Aye.
Noack?
Aye.
8 ayes, Mayor.
Motion carried. I would like to, at this time, please call up Janet Mackin, the daughter of Ann Mackin. Alderman Avila? Alderman Noack? Would you please present Ms. Mackin with a copy of the sign that's going to be erected?
I understand that Public Works has already erected the sign that they keep.
That's what I was told earlier today.
Thank you, Bob.
At the Park District, Mr. Velez, if you want to do a presentation, obviously, we can still do their presentation. We can mask the sign, just kind of like we did by the world's largest too. Okay? I think that was the board's intention. Thank the board members for being here also. Item E1, please.
Item E1 is a communication from Berwyn Development Corporation Director Hulsberg seeking permission for a specialty car parade on October 3rd, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 3rd car parade and send to the Police, Fire, and Public Works Department to coordinate with Berwyn Development Corporation.
Second.
Motion by Lennon, seconded by Reardon, to approve the car parade and send it to Police, Fire, and Work for coordination. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. David, do you have something you wanted to add?
Simply all costs associated with this event, overtime, et cetera, the Berwyn Development Corporation will pick up.
And I think this was already run through Unified Command. It was approved, so provided whatever we can work out with logistics. Okay? Thank you, David. Item F1, please.
Item F1 is a proclamation declaring September 2020 as National Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas September is globally known as Suicide Prevention Month. The National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation was created to raise the visibility of the mental health resources and suicide prevention services available in our community. The goal is to speak openly about the importance of mental health and the impacts of suicide to help remove the surrounding stigmas and to direct those in need to the appropriate support services. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and according to the American Federation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among adults and the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 34 in the U.S. And whereas more than 47,000 people died by suicide across the United States in 2017, which according to the CDC was more than twice the number of homicides, with an average of 129 suicides completed daily, which includes active military and veterans accounting for 13.5% of all suicides nationally. And whereas each and every suicide directly impacts a minimum of 100 individuals, including family, friends, and co-workers, neighbors, and community members. And whereas Berwyn is no different than any other community across the country, but chooses to publicly place our full support behind local educators, mental health professionals, athletic coaches, law enforcement officers, and parents as partners in supporting our community and simply being available to one another. And whereas global organizations like Hope for the Day and our local partner, Pillars, are on the front lines of a war that many still refuse to discuss, as suicide and mental health remain too uncomfortable to talk about. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all fighting our own battles. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time to check in with their family, friends, and neighbors on a regular basis and to honestly communicate their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate, a simple phone call, message, handshake, or hug can go a long way toward helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Robert J. Lovero, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in the city of Berwyn. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Robert J. Lovero, and the members of Berwyn City Council do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in the city of Berwyn. Entered upon the record of the city of Berwyn this 8th day of September 2020.
Be my motion to adopt this proclamation, contact the corporate authorities to sign the necessary signatures and place it on its way to passage. I'd like to thank the ladies for coming out and talking a little bit about the suicide prevention. I was learned early on when the pandemic started that suicide hotlines, their calls went up 900%. So, I just, together as a community, look out for our neighbors, and times like now, with so much division and diversity and stuff, this is something that doesn't affect one race, more than the other. It affects us all equally. So I urge everyone to look at my Facebook page for more information about the Zoom meeting regarding the suicide prevention and awareness.
Second.
Motion by Noack, seconded by Avila, to adopt the proclamation, affix the necessary signatures, place on its way to passage, and thank the young ladies who showed earlier with all the information. All those in favor, call the roll.
Lennon.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Reardon.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Santoy. Ruiz.
Aye.
Avila.
Aye.
Noack.
Aye.
8 ayes, Mayor.
Motion carried. Item F2, please.
Item F2 is a resolution recognizing the week of September 15th, 2020 as National Hispanic Month. Whereas in September of 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed Public Law 9498 authorizing the President to designate the week of September 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Week in recognition of the anniversaries of the first Latin American countries to declare their independence. And whereas with the approval of Public Law 100-402 in 1988, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas September 15th was chosen as a starting point for the celebration because it is the anniversary of independence of 5 Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Mexico and Chile celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th and 18th respectively. And whereas Hispanics and Latinos of every generation represent an array of distinct and vibrant cultures and have made immense contributions to the defense of freedom at home and abroad through courageous service in the United States military, the arts, education, mathematics, science, literature, technology, athletics, and philanthropy in this country and the world. And whereas Hispanics and Latinos have played a pivotal role in our city's strength and prosperity, their spirit, energy, and leadership are woven into the culture of Berwyn, with many of our current public officials, administrators, educational and city leaders of Hispanic heritage and descent. And whereas the Hispanic American population has grown by 1.2% in Cook County, making it the fourth highest county in the nation with a Hispanic population, Hispanics have had a profound and positive influence in Cook County through their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. They have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their community. And whereas the mayor and the city council are desirous of promoting the general welfare of the city residents, visitors, and businesses, continuing to create an environment in which all of our Berwyn residents have the opportunity to achieve the American dream, a love of liberty and justice, and a belief that a better life should await anyone willing to work for it. And whereas in recent years the term Latinx has begun to be used instead of Hispanic or Latino to represent the identities of non-binary, gender non-conforming, and gender-expansive people, Latinx also includes the lives of Indigenous, Brazilian, and other non-Spanish speaking people in this celebration. And whereas there is an ordinance that was established on April 11th, 2017, that established the city of Berwyn, County of Cook, State of Illinois, as a welcoming city, so that each and every person in our city is safe and free to thrive and contribute to our country and community. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Robert J. Lavero, and the members of Berwyn City Council will authorize the flying of the Mexican flag flown at our City Hall, originally a gift from U.S. Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia during Latinx Heritage Month, to show support and welcome our persons of Latinx descent during these difficult times of division in our country. Entered upon the record, City of Berwyn, this 8th day of September 2020.
I used to have a friend of mine that would make a joke out of the United States taking away part of Texas from the Mexican government back then. But now he says that they took that part, but now we got California, New York, Florida, Illinois, so we got ours back. Anyways, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution, ask the corporate authorities to fix the necessary signatures, and place it on its way to passage.
Second.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Ramirez to adopt the resolution, direct the corporate authorities to affix the necessary signatures, place on its way to passage. All those in favor, call the roll.
Lennon.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Reardon.
Aye.
Fate.
Aye.
Santoy. Ruiz.
Aye.
Avila.
Aye.
Nowak.
Aye.
8 ayes, Mayor.
Motion carried. Item F4, please.
Mayor, would you like to distribute these now or later?
Actually, Ruth, you were going to distribute those?
Yes. They were going to be distributed to our members, elected officials of Latino heritage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item F4, please.
Item F4 is a communication from the mayor recommending that Berwyn recognize Election Day as a city holiday.
Make a motion that we concur with Mayor Navarro in recognizing Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 as a city holiday.
Second.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Nowak, concurring with the recommendation by the mayor's office of recognizing November 3rd, 2020 as a city holiday pursuant to state legislation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item G1, please.
Item G1 is a deferred communication regarding handicap parking application number 1313.
Marge, I actually have a couple of questions about this application. There's a few discrepancies in this application, but the one that stands out the most is that on 4/28, during the traffic engineer site inspection, the comments are not applicable. The vehicle sticker is not registered to the address under review. So according to our code,
Alderman Ruiz, they cured that problem.
Oh, okay, so that's been addressed?
Yes.
Okay, then fine. I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
Second.
Motion by Ruiz, seconded by Lennon, to approve the application for handicapped at 1624 Gunderson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item I1, please.
Item I1 is a communication from Alderman Santoy, the Budget and Finance Committee minutes of July 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Motion by Santoy, seconded by Lennon, to submit as informational. All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. Director Daish is saying that we're projecting $7.6 million less revenue than we had in 2020.
That was at that meeting of July 23rd. If you scroll down and read the minutes of August 31st, that comes more into focus, so to speak. So I would say that, and he's here, I think he can speak if he wants to, but that was, I think, the best statement or the best analysis that we had at the time, given the information we had available.
Great, can you?
Ben, would you like to add anything?
I agree. At that time, that was the best guesstimate based on the information
Do you
we had
have a
available.
better guesstimate now?
We're 1 month better than, we have information through April.
So what's the number now?
It's in the August 31st communication.
Correct.
Next one. Yep.
Can you tell me what it is?
Our revenues are down, right here. Yes, we're anticipating the revenues being down $7 to $8 million, and of course, that's based on transactions posted through July 31st.
Forgive me, I'm looking at the... Right, so I was looking, I apologize, I was actually looking at the 31st, and the number there is $7.6 million. That's, so I understand that I might have misspoken, but in the August 31st, so the number is 7.6.
Thus far, yes.
And so that was raised or lowered from the July number?
It's similar. It's similar.
Wait, the 2020 projected budget deficit is $5.4 million.
Right, we're talking about the revenue.
Yes, revenue,
Yeah, yeah.
and then if you take the expenditures, which were $2 million, the less than expected, the net projection is $5 million. So, probably a better number to look at overall, but.
I think the reason I ask is that we've been making budget decisions, and we have a significant gap, and I really prefer that we name that, put that on the table, and not just have it in our data. So, thank you both.
So I have a motion that was first and seconded on item I1.
Yes.
I want a motion to submit as.
I have the motion, I have the second, I
Yep.
don't have a vote on the, right. Motion by Santoy, seconded by Lennon, to consider informational. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item I2.
Item I2 is a communication from Alderman Santoy, the Budget and Finance Committee minutes of August 31st, 2020.
That'd be my motion to submit informational.
Second.
Motion by Santoy, seconded by Lennon, to consider as informational. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item J1, please.
Item J1 is a communication from Police Chief Semaglia. The first is an authorization to contract with Axon for body and in-car cameras.
I'll make a motion.
Actually, I'd like to make
this.
a motion to defer this till next council. And the reason for that is we are, as we just brought up, we are somewhere, revenues are down 5.4 million. And we're asking to vote on an almost $4 million 10-year contract. And there's a couple of questions in here. The chief brought up 3 points, that will help pay for this, but there's no numbers attached to these points. We anticipate to pay for hardware costs for the product out of asset forfeiture funds. I'd like to know how much of that is going to come out of that. And then the same thing with the next 2 points, the overtime expenditures Well, reallocate, well, how much in overtime expenditures are we talking about? I think with,
Alderman,
with
may I
something this high.
interject something? May I interject something?
Sure.
I was waiting for the chief to say something I think he was ready to say before you made your motion.
Mhm.
I was going to make that recommendation, but that's fine. But I want to make it to include that we defer it to the budget.
Well, defer it for 2 weeks and refer it to the budget committee.
Yeah, defer it for 2 weeks and refer it to the budget committee, because they're going to have a meeting in a week or so, and hopefully they could get these answers to us. I know that they've talked to the finance director already, and they've got some areas where they have the money for this, but we, like you said, we're not sure where, how much of that money's, where it's coming from. So we do need to add the...
And I'm okay with that, to defer that. What's sir?
Basically, being referred to the Budget and Finance Committee, I just would like to get an idea from everybody here, specifically what we are to ask. I mean, there's 3 of us, and we will review it, we will take action on it, but ultimately, there's 8 of us that make that decision. I have 2 committee meetings yet to announce, that I will be announcing at the end of this meeting, and hadn't anticipated evaluating this, but again, I just would really appreciate some input as to what we would be expected to analyze.
Based on that, I know that you
have.
have 2 busy meetings coming up, and I have some questions about the contract, now that I can see the contract. Unlike the team did a lovely presentation, but that was the first that I'd seen it. And so the research that I've done about this has raised a whole bunch of questions for me, like what is the longevity of these materials? Are we going to be rebuying these cameras over and over again? 10-year contract for tech is a long time. Software goes out of date, hardware goes out of date. Will we be needing at the end of year 7, will everything be obsolete? And will we need to buy this again and yet still pay out this contract?
Well, I think during the presentation of the committee of whole, the people from Axon addressed that, and they would be replacing that equipment at no extra charge based on the contract.
Yeah.
Correct.
Officer Fitzgerald, Officer Gamino, am I correct in that, in what they just said? That's what I thought I heard.
So over the entire course of the year, we'll not, or the 10 years, we won't be paying out any replacement costs?
No.
Okay, so, and I wondered, there's 114 devices for the body cams. What happens when what's the turnaround time for a replacement? If an officer takes a tumble and one gets broken?
They also provide us spares, and then we have also cameras that will be issued to auxiliary when they're working. So there are extra cameras for us to use.
So we'll be looking at more than 114 units, we'll be looking at 130?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's in the quote, but yes.
What is the average contract for this kind of technology?
Between 5 to 10 years.
And why have you chosen 10 rather than 5?
Because we're getting a better cost over the 10-year period. If we go with a 5-year contract and then we re-up after 5 years and it's mandated by the state, we'll be paying higher costs. This keeps the cost lower for 10 years.
Thank you.
I would like to, I don't know if Chief Samantha, if you had the plan to talk about this or just answer questions, but I'd just be curious.
We had them, everything was presented at Committee of the Whole on the 25th, Alderman, and they were here. They actually answered any questions that were asked. They also have a piece of equipment coming out for training that Alderman Reardon related she wanted to try out to show empathy and different scenarios with different individuals. And they emailed her and she never responded. So she never got to try the piece of equipment out that she was inquiring about.
Alderman Santoy, I've also suggested that at your budget meeting, the chief, the assistant chief, Joe Fitzgerald, and Mike Oshner be invited there because they're the ones that kind of work the numbers, and they'd be able to run over some of the questions that you may have regarding those numbers for the Finance Committee.
There's also questions that come up because there's add-on costs or costs that could be added on depending on what type is our car up to spec. So there's 2 different ways of installing this hardware, and so it kind of leaves it open-ended, and I'd like to see those questions answered. Are our cars up to spec? Do we have an IT person at the police station? to work with their IT people so that additional costs are not added up on this contract?
Yeah, we do, right, Joe? Yes.
Okay.
And our cars are up to spec for
Our
it.
respect, okay. So then we would send this we would send this, not just to, well, we would send this to the budgeting committee to discuss the finances on how we're going to pay for this. Is that correct?
It's whatever the finance committee wants to discuss, but my understanding of the motion from Alderman Avila is that he wants to discuss how it's going to be paid and answer those specific questions that you just asked.
I think that's the most important part of this, is really how we're going to pay for it, the revenue streams, and how we're going to pay for it, and then long-term, how much it's going to cost us as well. So.
And I understand there's grants out there, but it's kind of late to get it on.
It's kind of late this year because all the grants are already earmarked for things this year. Next year may be a stretch also, but if you look at the way the contract and the pricing is laid out, the first year is that we come up with the least amount, the second year is less, and then it goes up into the third year. And then years 3 through 10 are the same.
And we've also had a conversation with one of our state legislators who helped through discretionary funds fund some of Cicero's cameras. So I've already had that conversation with the legislator. Claudia from my office is preparing a letter to send her based on her request to see if they can help us too.
Good.
Chief, what's the granting cycle?
Joe, what's the granting cycle? Correct, that's what I thought. 2021 is what we're looking at right now. And some of those funds are already earmarked already also.
Sure, that's not precisely my question, but we are looking to apply for grants. When are those grants expected and when are they paid out? Because I think if they're expected at the first of the year, putting this off for a few months until we cross into that line and we're not in a COVID year budget deficit, does that make sense for us?
Well, if you put this off, this contract's going to go up by a minimum $600,000.
And also, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but November, we might be mandated to have.
Well, we don't know exactly when, but we know that the state and possibly the federal, I'm not too quite sure about the federal, are working on legislation now to mandate. So we're targeting, but by November 1st, if this contract is not accepted by the end of this month, then this contract loses its $600,000 discount that they're giving us.
Is that 600, I thought that was tied to us doing the 10-year, not a 5-year. Is that not tied to that?
It's tied to that, but signing it by the end of this month.
So giving us this material and presenting it to us during committee of the whole, cold, and then asking us to make this decision with limited information, and then saying there's a $600,000 penalty if we don't act immediately. If you've been working on this for a year, Chief, or since the beginning of the year, why haven't we heard about it before now?
We just got it put together within the last couple of weeks.
So why is it an emergency to get it done?
Because if we don't get it done by September 30th, we lose $609,000 in discounts. And if they mandate it by the state, the prices are also going to go up. So it's either get it now at $3.8 million over 10 years, or wait and hope that the prices don't go up and cost us 10 years once they mandate it, 10 million once they mandate it.
And why is this a no bid? Why can't we go out?
That was explained at the meeting too. Were you guys
I was
present
not
at the
there.
last committee of the whole?
Mr.
Oh, you
Mayor,
weren't here,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
there.
No, it's okay, sir.
I
did
was
say
there.
that.
It was
The
explained
idea-
on two purposes. They're a sole source with respect to this item because they store the information in the cloud. No other company does that, and it's unlimited. Whereas other companies that provide it, in fact, some of the towns, as in the chief's letter, that switched to this company had the major competitor, and it didn't work the way they needed to, and it cost too much money to store the information. This is in the cloud and it's unlimited, number one. Number two is that this has been already bid through the national. It's already been picked up by many of the national agencies, and it was bid through the national basis. That's probably more important than the other one.
The bid procedure allows us to see the distinguishing marks of each company. So putting that on paper so that we can see the costs and the benefits of each of the companies is what the bid process is about.
I understand, but the chief is, the police department's asking you to waive that based on those two, which is normal circumstances for waiving a bid.
And it's a $3,800,000 contract.
I'm not saying you have to vote for it, I'm just telling you what the situation is.
And every time there's an opportunity to waive the bids, that is the first thing we do. And that seems counterintuitive to the ordinance that passed while you were an alderman.
When you have a situation where you're buying a vehicle through the compact, you waive the bid. Where you have a situation where you're looking at equipment like this through a national bidding process, why was it unreasonable to waive the bid process? I don't fathom the answer, but, you know. All right, so we have a motion to,
Currently, we have just the Alderman Ramirez's motion to defer.
So I'll go ahead and defer it to the budgeting committee so it could be discussed how we're going to pay for this. And
so
what we
defer
can-
for 2 weeks.
Second.
And refer it to the budget committee.
Yes, sir, right.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Ramirez, seconded by Lennon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item J2, please.
J2 is a communication from Director Schiller. It's the proclamation declaring Arbor Day. So, just quickly, I, Robert Lavero, Mayor of Berwyn, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the city of Berwyn, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. I further urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Before I make a motion, I'd just like to share, and some of my adopted block members and 6th Ward residents are here. Raise your hands, ladies. I'm proud to say that although Bob is bringing this forward and I had no knowledge of it, shame on me, that the 6th Ward residents and I have been working on some beautification projects in the ward, and a lot of them really are in coordination with this proclamation about nature and about trees and about beautification and us living cohesively together. So I'm excited that this is coming forward. Thank you, ladies, for being so persistent about this and for volunteering your time. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this proclamation and fix the necessary signatures and send it on its way to passage.
Second.
Motion by Ruiz, seconded by Lennon.
Yep.
To adopt the proclamation, to fix the necessary signatures and place on its way to passage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item J3, please.
J3 is a communication from Library Director Tammy Sheedy regarding the drive-through fairy tale ball on October 4th, 2020.
I will make a motion to approve the drive-by fairy tale ball and send this communication to police, the police department, Public Works for coordination and assistance with the library.
Second.
Motion by Lennon, seconded by Fate to agree with the recommendation, allow the fairy tale ball on October 4th, 2020. Send the communication to police and public works for coordination. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Avila, seconded by Noack to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Aldermanic committee meetings. Alderman Lennon.
Call it a chair.
Alderman Ramirez. Alderman Reardon.
I'll be talking to the Committee for the Human Relations this week. Call the chair.
Alderman Fate.
Call the chair.
Alderman Santo.
Two committee meetings, only one for, bear with me here. Tuesday, September 15th, at 5:30 p.m. And Thursday, September 24th, 5:30 p.m., City Hall. Okay, so I'm going to be open and public here with everybody. The September meeting that I had scheduled, the first one, September 15th, was I have the agenda, I already sent it to the clerk. I guess I'm being asked to amend that and consider this budget, consider the police camera?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, and for the record, I don't understand what the 3 of us will talk about, that the 8 of us cannot talk about, but I would do my duty as the Budget and Finance Committee Chair and try to comment. But the main focus will be committee budget recommendations wanted to clarify that for everybody and just get it on the table, my opinion of the referral.
Alderman Ruiz?
Call the chair.
Alderman Avila?
Alderman Santori, you're the man. Thank you.
Don't
Call the chair.
Alderman Noack?
Call the chair, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Noack, second by Avila. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Tony, who made the second on your motion to adjourn? Thanks.